Hello there and welcome everyone. I am super excited and feel very blessed to be here with Leah Wilson today. We are here to have a meaningful conversation about the organization Leah co-founded, which is called Stand for Health Freedom. I thank you so much for being in Indianapolis, first of all.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. There's some great people here.
Oh my gosh, we do. I agree wholeheartedly. Leah and Stand for Health Freedom have been conducting some local meetings here, and that's how I learned of Leah. We're at the monthly Stand for Health Freedom meetings. So we are fortunate to have her in our local community. You know, there's multiple things I really appreciate about you. One, you're so a smart cookie. She does a lot of research, and she provides what she knows with her whole heart to our community. And number two, you do it in such a beautiful way where you really are wanting what's just good and right for all people. So thirdly, I love your faith and your hope and your belief that you pack in there too. So I'm happy for all of you to get to meet Leah today. I thought it'd be really wonderful to have you share just a little bit about your journey and what led you to co-founding Stand for Health Freedom.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
You're
great
welcome.
to be here. So Stand for Health Freedom, first of all, is an action center that gives people a place to do something about health freedom issues. So what is health freedom? Health freedom is, one, saying how you care for your own body, how you care for the health of your children, how you care for your body and your children's bodies in congruence with your honor to God or your worship of God, and then access to all the information to do those things, right? So that's health freedom. Some people want to know, like, how does that fit in my backyard? Like, why should I care about those types of things? And that's become very apparent to people over the last year, as the reason we have 200 people coming out once a month to gather together with other people in the community is because there is this uprising of people that feel like, why are we being driven by fear and intimidation and coercion right now in our workplaces, in our schools, in the town square, in the shopping places, and what is going on? Like, this just doesn't feel right, that there's so much intense fear and so much intimidation and so much bullying going on, and where do we go from here? So that's why Stand for Health Freedom exists, is to be a place where you can get on there and see what's going on in my state right now and what can I do to take action? Who can I tell that I care about this, and what do I say to them to make a difference? So within 30 seconds, you can make your voice known on these extremely important issues. Yeah. Why Stand for Health Freedom? Like, how do we get here? Why do I care so much about this issue? I think people want to know that. You know, why am I dedicating my life to this? Sometimes I have people ask me, like, are you trying to run for office or something? And I'm like, no, honestly, like, there's no motives other than spreading health freedom within our states. It's a state level issue. So within Indiana here for our home state, and then helping other organizations do that within their own state. And the reason why this issue became a top priority for me and for my family was because of the foster kids. The same reason why I went to law school initially is what brought me out of all of that too. And that's my passion for foster children. So initially I went to law school because it kept me up at night, that through some personal exposure, I had dug really deep into the foster care system, that we had way too many kids aging out of the foster care system without any sense of belonging. And then we try to patch it together and say, well, here's these independent living services, and this will help you reduce the prostitution rates, drug rates, homelessness, early death rates, all of those things. And it just doesn't work like that, because without a sense of belonging, these individuals don't move forward in life. And then the second thing was the over medication of our children, which is hugely represented within the foster care system. A lot of people don't recognize that we have more than 200,000 toddlers, so ages 2 and under, in the U.S. on psychotropic drugs. And a lot of this is happening within the foster care system because you have kids that don't feel safe enough to sleep at night. And then the answer is give them this medication so that they can sleep, instead of getting to the crux of how do we get these kids feeling safe enough to sleep at night. So I went to law school, became a child advocate, and then left Big Law some years ago to dedicate myself to foster care into our natural health center. So in 2018, the very beginning of 2018, we were up for relicensure of our own foster care license to be a foster home. And the state said at that time that we were no longer eligible to serve as foster parents because our children are a threat to the well-being of the foster kids. It's like, wait, in our law-abiding, loving home with healthy children, this just seems unthinkable. And it's because we don't vaccinate our kids with all 69 doses of the recommended vaccines on the current schedule here in Indiana. And so therefore, because we don't participate in that full vaccine schedule, our kids are now considered a threat to other children. And asking, you know, the case managers and going up to the director of DCS and up through the whole system and saying, show me that my kids are a threat and show me that what's changed. Like, the law hasn't changed, regulations haven't changed, there's no new science, like, what's going on? And of course, they can't show you that. All they say is, this is how it's going to be. And so at that point, I said, okay, God, this is too big to fight, you know, too big to fight the influence of the pharmaceutical industry on our state organizations, but also too big not to fight. And from there, I dove headfirst using my law degree and my natural health knowledge and built Stand for Health Freedom with Sayer G, who is the founder of GreenMedInfo.com, and one of our great friends and colleagues, Dr. Joel Bohemier, who is also in Florida with Sayer G. So that's how Stand for Health Freedom came to be. And at that point, when we lost our license and I dove in headfirst, guess what was going on then? The measles outbreaks. And so that's what we were primarily covering a couple of years ago, was the measles outbreaks and the federal hearings that were happening because of the measles outbreaks and how that was going to affect parental rights. And were parents going to be able to decline the MMR shot if their kid had had a prior reaction to the shot, if it was against their religious beliefs, if a sibling had had a neurological regression after the shot and they didn't feel right about doing this in their family any longer. So those parental rights were majorly in question during those measles hearings. And Sayer G and I noticed, okay, so we can report on this hearing and get a lot of attention and get 10,000 shares on Facebook, but there's something missing. And that is the voting block for health freedom. That is having an organized voice, an organized message that people can use, and then we can track and measure and say, hey, we've had 10,000 people send this message over the last few days, and we need an answer, because otherwise we need your seat in office.
Yes. And that is so what you've done through the platform on the website. So standforhealthfreedom.com, right? We lost our light. So you have put things together in such a beautiful way that it really takes 30 seconds to go and lend your name to an important issue to you and send it right to your legislators and allow your voice to be heard. And I know this has come up a lot, and we can get to talking a bit more about what's going on currently. What I have realized at the meetings, we've had some state reps come talk to us, is that everyone's voice really does matter and does make a difference. And when they're hearing from us and they hear that we're not happy, they're having a reaction to that, right?
Yes. And we've heard state reps say that when they receive 12 of a same or similar message, they start perking up. 12 messages can cause them to think, whoa, there's a lot of people behind this message. So when you think about making a campaign readily accessible to click, to act, and share with your friends and let your friends know what's going on in our state, we've had, 5,000 messages sent within a week's time. And granted, that's not all going to the same reps, but spread across that, it's a very significant showing of what the people of Indiana want. And the reason that's so important is because it's no surprise that the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry, they outspend oil and gas in lobbying. So our government officials at every level are hearing from the pharmaceutical industry. and they're hearing from them in a way that says they have the answers to all of the health issues, and anything outside of that is unacceptable, because that's how they get maximum uptake on a for-profit product. And so tens of billions of dollars being spent per year to influence policy on health freedom, on what health decisions you can make for yourself and your kids, makes it so that we have no choice but to speak up and talk, because otherwise our side of the story, our preferences will not be known without utilizing something like Stand for Health Freedom, or having the time, energy, resources, and wherewithal to walk in with your own message, which is still important. If you do have that, absolutely build those relationships, know who your reps are, know who your local officials are, but also our strength is in our numbers. So we have over 7,000 advocates in Indiana right now that take action on the portal, and coming together in that way is huge, because we know that together a peaceful protest can hold back things that we don't want to see happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that. So one person leads to a dozen. I mean, that's so doable, right?
Yes.
And then it gogoes from there. It ripples from there. I know for me, like, I'll listen to like Leah and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just never talk like her. Like, you just, you have such great knowledge and awareness and great information. And I'm so appreciative that you have that and that you share that with us and make it easy for us to be heard. I know at a time I'm like, I mean, how do we work the system? Like, how do we, it can seem very overwhelming. I know it has for me. And so being able to tap in to Stand for Health Freedom, to link arms with other people who care and to work together. Mm-hmm. So, I'm working together with some people who are in my district where we can have a conversation with our state rep, and we can have this meaningful conversation and share with them where we're at and the information that we have gleaned and why it's important to us. So it's just a great thing. And back to the foster thing too, everyone wants to have a sense of belonging and a safe space. And that is also, Stand for Health Freedom here in Indianapolis has been that safe space for many people, especially during this time when we have been in isolation. We've been encouraged to be alone, really, and to not gather. And so, let's talk a little bit about some of the immediate things that are on the plate right now, and the campaigns that are out there on the web portal for people to access and get some good information in their hands and take action.
Yes, and I love that you brought up the safe space, because there's been so many months where I am on my way to those meetings and I'm thinking, okay, God, what do the people need to hear from me right now? They know what's going on, but yet they need access to information that they might not have. And the overwhelming response after each meeting is the hope that comes from being with other people who don't like what they see, and knowing that there are hundreds of other families in their immediate area who want to see something better for our educational institutions. They want to see something better within our communities and local restaurants and for their own businesses. And so I love that hope comes from gathering together and from taking action. So I love that. And it's not, the reason we exist is so that taking action is not overwhelming or not doable for you and for your friends and for the teachers that you associate with and your neighbors and your hairdresser. And that's why Stand for Health Freedom exists, is to remove those barriers. You don't have to watch every CDC hearing or read every World Health Organization release, because our team wants to make it easy for you guys to have access to that information and to be able to find it if you want it, but to know what's going on and know when to take action. So what does that mean here in Indiana today? There's two primary things. We'll talk about the kids first, because the kids are first, right? So two primary initiatives here in the state of Indiana for this summer and going forward until we see resolve in this. One is, we've known from very early on that the kids are not at risk for harm or death from the coronavirus. There's a 99.997% recovery rate in our children. What does it look like most of the time for children to have the coronavirus? It is that they never get symptoms, so a PCR test might say they're positive with what that means, or they get very mild symptoms and recover quickly. So that's what we're seeing with the kids. We've known from pretty much the start that they are not at risk, but yet we still made them a victim of guidelines that are experimental, for one, and two, we have now seen are very harmful to them, to mask, to socially isolate them, to distance them, to make them afraid of germs, over-sanitize their environments. All of these measures that we know are harmful to the psychology, the emotional and mental well-being of a child, and even the physical well-being of a child have been tolerated for more than 3 semesters now. We're going into a 4th semester with what we're seeing with summer school here in Indiana. So knowing that they're not at risk, and knowing that the research also shows us that we've had huge studies that show the kids are not the transmitters, the kids are not passing coronavirus on to the teachers and the parents, that it's the adults that are passing the coronavirus. The kids are not. So not only are our kids not at risk, and they're not the ones that are passing the virus around, they are still being put under these measures. So what I'm trying to tell you is it's unnecessary. Like, we have the proof. It's pretty irrefutable that it's unnecessary to make our kids jump through hoops or participate in these guidelines, because they're not at risk and they're not endangering the adults that they're around. However, what have we seen? After, we as parents obviously went through this season kind of watching and waiting and wondering, how long will it last? Who should we be listening to? What does this mean for our children? Am I going to be able to keep working and keep my kids in school? So there's been so many unknowns, and we have gone along for over 15 months now, 17 months. And now it's time to reflect and say, okay, we put our kids in the masks. We continue to send them to school because we trusted those institutions, but it's now time to put our children first. It's not their job to protect us, and they're not a threat to us anyway. So fulfilling that false belief that they are a threat to us is only harming them. So we want Governor Holcomb to answer us and tell us, why is he continuing to issue orders that say our kids need to remain in masks in schools and on the school buses and during summer school and even outdoors when they can't socially distance? Like, why are our children still in masks and still being socially distanced and still being regulated with COVID guidelines? We want these guidelines lifted for our children. The suicide rates in adolescents have gone through the roof during this season. And the headaches, cavity issues, ulcers in the mouth and in the throat, dermatological issues. I had one friend, her daughter got kicked in the face, had a little wound from getting kicked in the face at recess, and it turned into an infection across her whole masked area because of the bacterial site that it harbored. So you have that moisture and the lack of oxygen, and you have that bacterial site develop, and now she has infection across her whole face. Another friend of mine, her daughter had staph infection 4 times on her face. And other moms are saying, oh, that was the mask that did that, and because we don't have permission to think that the mask could be harming my child, a lot of moms are feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, not knowing where to turn. So we want answers to why are our children still under these guidelines when states like Florida, Texas, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arizona, they've all said no more, not for our kids any longer. And in Indiana, we want the same. We want reassurance that our kids will go back to school in the fall without COVID restrictions. They'll be treated as persons, not as a threat to us as adults. The kids, 99.997% recovery rate, guess what? Almost everyone up into 70 has nearly that high of recovery rate. And so, yes, the kids are pretty much completely safe from this, and they should know that. They should know what a gift they are to us in terms of herd immunity, because they are going through this without being a threat to us and without them being threatened. But instead, we've scared them, and we're done. We're done with that, and we as this community are going to have to decide how to step forward. So if you text, I'm going to have to look at the text number because it just changed. We had our software updated, so we have some new exciting stuff on the horizon for Stand for Health Freedom.
Wonderful.
But I want to tell you how to text in and take action and ask Governor Holcomb to stop issuing these orders, because we hear, these school boards that have fiduciary duties over our children, we hear them saying, okay, the orders are what we don't feel comfortable defying. So if the health department just keeps coming out with guidance, they're more likely to harness their fiduciary duties and do what they see best to keep our kids safe. But with these orders, like Governor Holcomb is issuing, that's not good. So text So get out your phones and open your texting app and text the word kids first, all one word, KIDSFIRST. So kids first to 50457. So when you text 50457 with kids first, you'll land on a page where you can click and take action, include your own child's story. You know, you could be a caregiver, a grandparent, a concerned neighbor, or a community member in education, whatever that is. Add your voice to that campaign so we can get these restrictions lifted for our children.
Yes, please take the action. And we deserve to be at choice. And we deserve to make the decision that we feel is best for our kids. Mm-hmm. I'm a mama. This is very important to me. And you start messing with the mama bears and the parents, and it's important that we hold our stance and we get our voices out there. And also, what I appreciate about Stand for Health Freedom, you're we deserve to honor our own choice for our health and our medical choices. And so it's not about judging what someone does. Mm-hmm. It's about being able to make our own decisions.
Yes, it's recognizing that there's more than one way to pursue health. Solid public health policy acknowledges that there's not only a single way to pursue health, and we have completely lost our way with that in regards to health policy, because the CDC guidelines are so tightly yoked with the pharmaceutical agenda. And those of us who sometimes or always or never or maybe choose a pharmaceutical-free lifestyle are saying, wait, there's more than one way to do this. And quite frankly, it's no secret that the CDC's way has a horrible track record. The CDC's way, America is one of the worst in infant mortality in the industrialized world, one of the worst in maternal mortality. 54% of our kids have at least one chronic disease diagnosis. 60% of our adults have at least one chronic disease diagnosis. And so the CDC's way is certainly not the only way. It doesn't matter if you choose their way or you choose a different way. The only thing that everyone that joins Stand for Health Freedom and puts their voice behind these messages agrees upon is that we get to choose which path is best for our kids and that's not selfish, because a community is made up of a bunch of individuals. So when an individual is healthy, it only helps the community be healthy too.
Yes, indeed. So just had a thought, and it just came in and went right out. It'll come back. Okay, we talked about children's health. Is there another item on the plate, so to speak, right now that you think is important for people to know that are tuning in?
Yeah, so the second one we mentioned in Indiana is stopping segregation based on those health choices. However, let's say one more thing about the kids, and that is, if you want to speak to your school board, we have put all of the resources necessary on the Stand for Health Freedom webpage, the Kids First page. Those resources are there. There's actually a full presentation available that you could take that PowerPoint and download it, give it to a community group. Get 10 moms together and talk to them about getting on board with it. Start speaking the same language and sending that message, and start showing up at your school board meetings with those messages. So that PowerPoint presentation is available for you to download and to use, to condense, to take parts of it, pieces of it. There's voices of experts on there. And really what we see as the crux of the message is all available to you on standforhealthfreedom.com/kids-first.
Yes. So good. So much good information.
And even your friends in other states can use that. With our other priority in Indiana right now, we did have a good law passed at the end of session, thanks to some representatives who really heard us, that we wanted vaccine passports to not be a reality in Indiana, that we wanted people to be able to exercise informed consent, especially when it comes to a biologic that had very little known about it when it was rolled out to the public. So we did have a good law passed that says that the government and local government, so state government and local government, cannot force us to show proof of vaccination in order to participate, enter the building, etc. However, that law is not strong enough, and we can see that today because our university students are up against a wall and our healthcare workers are up against a wall. There's lots of other companies where their employees feel the same, but right now what we're seeing play out in the healthcare industry and in our universities is that people feel very backed against the wall in terms of being forced to participate in this pharmaceutical product, or else give up their career, give up their pension, give up their benefits. We have some juniors in college who are so close to their degree. How many tens of thousands of dollars they poured into that degree? How many hours and how much camaraderie and ties do they have to that community? And now they're being asked to either take the jab or be segregated. That's what we're not going to settle for is, okay, so if you don't take the jab, then you can't participate in these special activities. We have different privileges. And that's the trigger right there. Are we really going to stand by and say, okay, we're going to take our college students who aren't at risk? Once again, it's unnecessary to segregate them. It's unnecessary to force things upon them. And say, you either participate in this program that's making Pfizer $15 billion this year alone and Moderna 18 point something billion dollars this year alone. Free product, right? However, since they're not at risk and since we don't stand for a two-class society, then we need to be asking our lawmakers to strengthen this law. And we think, aren't there already protections in place? We have religious freedom, claim your religious exemptions. We have medical freedom, claim your medical exemptions. But how we're seeing this play out is that it is affecting way too many people negatively. And even if the religious exemptions are being acknowledged, it's being done in a way that results in segregation. Being told, you're the only one that has to keep a mask on. Or you can't eat or drink near anyone else. Stay away because you're essentially a leper. Being treated like a leper.
Yeah.
Even when you're a healthy individual.
Yeah.
Not that we want to differentiate between who's healthy and unhealthy, but in terms of having symptoms.
Yeah.
Like I'm not coughing, don't have fevers or chill or headache, and yet I'm unsafe to be around. I'm a threat to my environment. And that's not what we want for our community. We want better than that. And so we want our lawmakers come back into session and strengthen that law so that this is not the blueprint for our state. We do not want the mandatory vaccine that leads to segregation to be the blueprint in Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. We take things for granted real easily. And I think now is a wake-up time to be more informed, to understand our rights and our civil liberties, and to stand up for them and say we want them to be honored.
That's good.
Let's not take things for granted any longer. Let's be aware. Let's be knowledgeable. And let's be willing to speak up and to say what is good and right for me. So that was the point I had earlier. Was that I was like, we take things for granted.
Yes,
so
it's been so convenient.
So
like
convenient.
Our freedom has been convenient.
Yes.
And that's why right now when people are being forced into decisions such as change jobs or take the job when they don't want to take it, it's like, whoa, that's highly inconvenient. It's not that it's not doable, right? Like, we're creative. We're human beings. We can create new things, new systems. We can step outside of our comfort zone. But it's, do we value our freedom over convenience? Because for so long, we've been able to say, I don't know who's making decisions and what decisions are making for me or on my behalf in the halls of government, but I know that we have it pretty good. And so this has been a real wake-up call to say, I should care who's being elected, and I should care what decisions they're making on my behalf.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for providing us information, for educating us, for creating Stand for Health Freedom. Please go out there and check it out. Can they learn, if they're here in Indianapolis, how can they learn about the monthly meetings or being around the like-minded community?
That's good. I was just pulling out my phone to give you one more text number, because if you take action on the Kids First campaign or on this campaign we were just talking about to stop the segregation, stop the discrimination based on vaccine status, then you'll get alerts thereafter, because you will be in the Stand for Health Freedom Action Center as an Indiana resident. So text in for the segregation campaign, anti-segregation. 50457 is still the number, and text in the word Hoosier. So Hoosier to 50457, and once you take action on that campaign, then you'll receive alerts about the last week of the month. We normally send out an invitation to our meetings, which are held on the second Tuesday of the month in the evening time, every month, second Tuesday in the evening. And we send out those invitations for you to RSVP. And when you RSVP, we will send you that location and the time. So you'll get the time and the location when you save your seat. And we have had such an outpouring. It's been such a fun group. Mm-hmm. I mean, such an amazing group of people with diverse interests and diverse backgrounds. I think last time we had 17 different counties in Indiana represented in those 200 people. And then at the end, we break up in our county groups so that we can meet our neighbors and talk about what's going on in our own communities.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Okay, say the number again a little slower. 50.
I want to make sure I don't say it wrong. 50457.
All right.
50457 with the word Hoosier.
Awesome.
We hope to see you there.
Yes, we sure do. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to you taking action with us and feeling supported and safe in this time. So with that, any final words?
Our strength is truly in our numbers. So when we want answers, we come together behind this message and move forward, step forward in that message together. So I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for the meaningful conversation, and everyone out there, be well and be blessed.